TataNisha Reed, and we're live on 910 AM Superstation. We're also on WADL, Channel 38. We are Detroit's largest voice for African Americans. I'd like to thank you, my viewers and my listeners. And if you have a question during this segment, please give us a call, 313-209-9000, 313-209-9000. Today, I have some very special guests, and I'd like to introduce my guests. I have Albert Moyer, and I also have Jasmine Moyer. And my guests today, they are here to talk about something near and dear to their heart. Mr. Moyer is the father, and Jasmine is the sister of a young man who is, in their words, being maliciously prosecuted in the state of California. He is incarcerated. He has been incarcerated for quite some time, and they believe that his rights are being trampled over. And they believe there's a lot of racism going on, and they have a lot of documentation here to prove it. And what I'd like to do is to talk about their case in detail. I'd like to give them an opportunity to tell you about their case, and I'd like to inform and educate my listeners and educate my viewers on what's going on, particularly in the realm of domestic violence, in the realm of the institution of racism, and how Black men and all men can get wrapped up into a situation and they somehow find themselves incarcerated for periods of time for something that is everyday and commonplace and exaggerated. And sometimes they're even lied on. So we will get right into it. Albert Moyer, before we get into the details, please give the viewers a synopsis. Tell them who your son is, where he's at, and kind of how he got there. And I'm going to chime in.
Well, my son, again, his name is Albert Moyer the Fourth. Born and raised from Detroit, born in Seattle actually, but raised in Detroit, where I'm a resident for most of my life. He rounded up in Los Angeles. Okay, basically as an entrepreneur. Went out there with the American dream. You know what I'm saying, to strike it rich out in California. And went out there and met a young lady that he fell in love with.
And what was her name?
Her name was Tanya Lewis.
Okay.
Tanya Angelica Lewis, to be exact. And so they had a up and down relationship, more or less, coming and going. But Al proposed to her. They were supposed to get married. She devoured her love to Al. One particular night, they had a couple of drinks. She basically thought he was on the phone.
So when you say they had a couple of drinks, were they intoxicated?
Well, no, I don't think they were really intoxicated, but I think she was also coupling from what my son tells me, that she was taking other, prescription drugs that she was on, along with the hard mic lemonade that she drank.
Okay. And so what happened after that? Was there some type of physical altercation? Did she go through his phone? Did she think he was on the phone? What happened?
He was on the phone talking to my daughter, Jasmine, and she thought my son was talking to someone else. So jealousy enraged her. He got off the phone. He came in to try to explain to her that he was only talking to his sister. She got upset and mad and was, kind of attacking him and hitting at him.
When you say attacking, did she physically hit him first? Did she assault him?
Yes, she assaulted him.
Or did he assault her?
She assaulted him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, just punching the hitting. And most guys know how some young ladies can get sometimes. Not all, but some. Or anybody that, is enraged. She's hitting at him, and he's a man. He's just blocking it. Calm down, calm down. So he pinned her down. When he pinned her down, she reached for a candle holder and struck him in the face like several times. And when she struck him in the face several times, it created certain, it caused lacerations and cuts in his face and his mouth, loosened his tooth, so forth. So he got up and he was like, "Are you crazy?" So at this particular point, they're screaming and hollering at each other.
Okay. And as they're screaming and hollering at one another, how did it end? When he pinned her down, did he hit her in any way? Was she physically struck? Was she abused? Did she receive any bruises or lacerations as a result of being
none whatsoever. Again, she was the dominant aggressor. She attacked him.
And with her attacking him, who called the police?
A neighbor heard them hollering and screaming, and they called the police. Okay, because she claimed she was trying to call the police throughout the altercation, but she never got through. She claimed she couldn't get through.
Okay, wait. When you say you have to make the story succinct so our listeners can understand.
Right.
So we had an altercation.
Right.
She attacked him.
Yes.
He pinned her down.
Correct.
Neighbors heard screaming.
Correct.
Neighbors called the police.
Neighbors called the police.
When you're saying she claimed to call the police, are you talking maybe later in testimony?
Later in testimony.
Okay. So, Jazz, I want you to pick up there. So when the police came, what happened?
When the police came, I honestly don't know what happened from that point. I just remember receiving a phone call from my brother from jail at that point, and he called and said, "Hey, I'm in jail. I need you guys to bail me out." And then that's when I proceeded to ask him, what happened? Was it from the altercation that you all had when I was on the phone? Because when he was on the phone with her, when he was on the phone with me, excuse me, and I thought that, I'm sorry. This situation is just very emotional for me. He was on the phone with me, and when he walked back in, she thought he was on the phone with another woman. And so I heard everything, and that's when I heard the phone drop. And so that's when I heard him, when he called back, and he called me back, and he was in jail when he called me. And so that's when it proceeded from.
So in your mind, these were going to be just some average domestic violence charges from a scuffle.
Correct.
Can you tell me right now what your brother is being charged with?
Currently, right now, the charge is attempted murder.
And if I hold up this picture, is this a picture of the young lady's face immediately following the incident?
Yes.
And if you look at this picture, all you can see is a busted lip. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And from a busted lip, we somehow have an attempt murder charge.
Correct.
And what county is this in?
This is in Riverside County in California.
And at the first court hearing, at the preliminary exam, did this individual come?
Well, at the first court hearing, she didn't show up.
How many months did she not come to court?
It was approximately 18 months before she actually came to court.
So they adjourned your preliminary exam for 18 months?
Correct. Albert was out on bond the entire time, and he kept coming back, making his court dates, and she never showed up.
So wait, Dad, here in Michigan, the law is you have 14 days to have from the date of arraignment to have a preliminary exam. If you do not have that you have to waive that exam. It is incumbent upon you to waive that exam. It is your right as a defendant. If you do not waive the exam, the court cannot proceed. It cannot go any further. Is it your understanding that your son did, in fact, waive his right to a preliminary exam within 14 days or within the time frame that they had in California? Or do you think that the judge there just continued to trample over that right?
The judge continued to trample over his rights. He had so many rights that were violated. It's unbelievable.
So I just want to be clear. You're telling me it took him 18 months to have a preliminary exam?
Took him 18 months to have a preliminary hearing, a preliminary examination.
Here in Michigan, that is just simply unheard of. 18 months to have a preliminary examination that you were supposed to have by right within 14 days. So once the 18 months passed and he had the preliminary examination, was the young lady at the prelim?
She finally showed up at the prelim, again, 18 months later.
So do you know, I have people call me all the time and say, how did this case drag on so long? Don't I have a right to a speedy trial?
Yes, you do. But the attorney that we retained at that particular time continued to allow them to adjourn, as opposed to within Albert's rights to have the case dismissed because she never showed up.
Well, it's two things with that. One, you only have a right to a speedy trial if you're incarcerated. Your right to a speedy trial attaches with your liberty interest. If you're not currently incarcerated, then that mitigates against your right to a speedy trial.
Right.
And with domestic violence cases, the state can pick up the case even if the victim doesn't show up. Do you think that's what happened, Jasmine?
I do. That is correct. The state actually did pick up the case because she stated that she was not going to press charges because she knew that they both made mistakes, so she did not want to press charges against Albert, and that's when Riverside County, the state of California, picked up the charges against him.
So after the preliminary exam, the individual, and the only evidence you're indicating is the pictures that I have, and it states she has a busted lip. I see a busted lip. I see several pictures that have times and dates on them. at least 3 to 4. In all of the pictures, she only has a busted lip. How did this thing escalate to an attempted murder charge?
Actually, that's what we're trying to figure out. How did it actually escalate to attempted murder charge? Well, the time before the actual preliminary hearing, the previous court date, the prosecuting attorney, who was the new prosecuting attorney that was actually placed on the case, he told my brother while I was standing right there that if he did not take the plea deal of the 4 years, 8 months that was offered to him, then he would go for him for attempted murder, try to chump the charges up against him for attempted murder.
That's what your dad called and told me. Your dad said, I'm really distraught because my son is innocent, but he's been pressured to plead. And what they're doing is holding another charge over his head. Dad, tell us how you felt about that.
Anyone that has a child that they truly love and care about and sacrifice their entire life would know exactly what I'm talking about. My daughter, who was just speaking, and then myself, in terms of my son being incarcerated, you want the best for your child. You know, it'd be different to a degree because I always tell my children to stand up, okay, for what is right. And that's what he's doing right now. It'd be different if he did something wrong, truly wrong. And I say, well, Al, there's a consequence behind things that we do. And that's how I've always taught him. My son has no priors. Never had done anything wrong in his life except just loving this young lady and loving her too much. Because she showed signs along the way of really just wanting to be with him for what he could do for her. And so it saddened me. It's times where I can't even sleep at night because I know they're trying to railroad my son.
So if your son was out on bond for 18 months, how is he currently incarcerated? At what point did they take his bond?
They took his bond again at the preliminary exam when they trumped up the charges to attempted murder. His attorney of record did not even show up, okay, to represent him. He sent an alternate attorney who explained to the judge, I'm not prepared for this case. I just received his information the night before. So we need to adjourn this, Your Honor. And the judge said, well, you need to call the other attorney and find out what's going on, which he did.
And I'll tell you this is crazy. That has happened to me here in Wayne County. I had a trial with an individual who had 3 felony counts of obstructing a police officer. I never met this guy a day in my life. The court said, Attorney Reed, I really need you to take this case. I said, okay. I took the case. They told me my client was in Wayne County Jail. I learned he was in Jackson. The trial was in 2 days. I get to court. I said, Judge, I can't do this. I've never met my client. They made me do the trial. I think that is a total yes, disrespect to our forefathers and the Constitution of the United States. How can I do a trial on felonies when I've never met the client and I've never read anything? Because the judge says, hey, take the case. You'd think the judge is going to at least have the common courtesy of allowing you to meet your client. I think some of these judges, they don't really care about the Constitution. I think they get power hungry. I think they're on their own self-aggrandizement, and they really don't care about the life that's next to them. So you're saying at the preliminary exam, this guy had never met your son.
He met him one time before because he had to come in when his attorney again did not show up. His attorney only showed up 3 times out of 7 times that he was representing my son, okay? And again, the most important one was the preliminary examination, which again, the judge made them go ahead and proceed with it. He was not prepared. Again, as you stated, Attorney Reed, how are you going to prepare a trial or represent someone when you just got the information just the night before or so forth and be able to argue a point for him?
So the prosecutor had this case for 18 months, but the new attorney, the stand-in, had just got it. Is that correct?
The night before, correct.
So now the judge decides that it's enough evidence to bind over on attempted murder.
Correct.
So now the charges go from domestic violence to attempted murder.
Exactly.
And your son gets remanded, not even having to talk to his attorney of record, only having talked to the stand-in. And what county is this?
This is in Riverside County, California.
Jasmine, on the break, you were telling me some things that you had learned and researched about Riverside County. What were you telling me?
Yes. Actually, we just read a study from UC Berkeley. And in the study, they talked about how the county, Riverside County, has spent over $200 million in the past 5+ years on trials that have been basically for people who have been maliciously prosecuted and things like that. So they were talking about the lawsuit that has been put against the county for these people who have been maliciously prosecuted and things like that.
So were the people granted $2 million? What is the $2 million?
Well, it was $200 million that was spent on actually trials, going to trial and prosecuting people of that nature.
Yeah, it was a class action lawsuit.
Thank you.
Against,
That's what I was looking for.
Okay, against the state of California, actually, which spent $282 million of, excessive bail, malicious prosecution, giving people more time than what they deserved, and so forth. And the Riverside County, actually, they've been cited for a class action suit for around anywhere from $10 to $20 million on the same thing, because what's happening out there is that the jails are privatized, and 76% of their revenue comes from housing young black men and minorities. Okay, from the people that we talk to, from other attorneys and lawyers and judges out there and so forth. Praise God that everyone is not on the same script that most of those people are on out there.
So wait, Mr. Moyer, so do you think that this is the case with your son? You think it's malicious prosecution? You think it's the institution of racism?
Oh, no question about it.
And why do you think it's not just the girl's testimony? What if I were the prosecutor right now, I'd say she came in, she testified, and based on her testimony, we bound over and we increased the charges to attempt murder. Why are you saying that's false?
Well, let's take one step at a time, Attorney Reed, for 1 second. First of all, when they bound him over, another right that was violated of his, besides having ineffective assistance of counsel, as we just talked about, they did not bind him over in the correct time frame to Superior Court in which they were supposed to. Now, they have to show cause of why they didn't bond him over, okay, within a certain period of time. They did not have a willful cause, whether it was the weekend, whether it was holidays or so forth. Though you're supposed to bond someone over in 15 days. They took 26 days to bond him over. And without prejudice, those charges are supposed to be dismissed according to the California State Constitution. Okay, and I don't know about the rest of the country, but out in California, that's the way it's supposed to be.
No, I think you're pretty right. I think it is. You're right in terms of paralleling it to Michigan. So we're going to break, but before we break, Jasmine, again, tell the people if they want to help what to do.
If you want to help, you can go to, again, it's www.indiego.com. When you go to the site, it will be a search tab in the right-hand corner, and you can type in the Albert J. Moyer story. Scroll down, and it will be a tab that says Donate Now, and you can donate.
And I encourage everybody to donate now. We're about to go to break, but again, I'd like to thank my guests. Thank you, Ms. Moyer.
Thank you so much for allowing us to come on the show.
And I bless you in the name of Christ, and I wish you the best.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have your constitutional rights been violated by illegal search or seizure of your motor vehicle or home? Did you know that every parent has a fundamental right of parenting, which includes visitation? Call me to get the rights you deserve. I'm attorney TataNisha Reed. Innocent until proven guilty is your right, not just the same. My team of legal professionals will work aggressively to advocate your criminal and family matters and get your life back on track.
For a greater chance to succeed in your time of need, call attorney TataNisha Reed.
Kaleidoscope. I'm attorney TataNisha Reed. And guess what? I'm live on 910 AM Superstation, a part of Adele Radio Group, Radio Our Way. We are Detroit's largest voice for African Americans. And guess what else? I have a new sports segment, and I'm here with two sports nuts. And this sports segment is facilitated by my cameraman, Ray Mosley. You guys can't see him, but Ray is starting a sports edition on 9:10 a.m., and he will be coming soon. And I am featuring his co-host, Mr. Jason Rutley.
Hey.
And I'm also featuring Devori Nesby.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, guys, I'm excited because I am a sports fan, and I know this is Legal Kaleidoscope, but the reason we're called Legal Kaleidoscope is because when you look into the eye of the law, we always can see a different perspective. So, in noticing a different perspective, let's talk about the NFL season. with it looming in the draft right around the corner. What do you think about Josh Norman?
Well, to start off with, Josh Norman, he's been in the league about 5 years. He's a teammate of Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, who just went to the Super Bowl. He had a nice year or two, and basically what happened was there's a thing called a franchise tag that a team places on a player when they're the best player on the team, or for that particular position. It's the highest paid. It's the highest paid for that position.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference between an MVP and a franchise tag? I've never heard the term franchise tag.
The franchise tag is basically where a player who they haven't worked out a long-term contract with, they decide to go ahead and put that franchise tag on them so the player doesn't become a free agent and is able to sign with another team.
Exactly.
So in that process of them becoming before they become a free agent, they hit them with the franchise tag, which will pay them at the highest that they can pay them for their position
There we go.
in order to work out a more franchise-friendly long-term deal.
Franchise-friendly.
Exactly.
Franchise-friendly.
Exactly. So it's a 1-year tag, basically saying
Definitely.
we want to keep you, but we aren't ready to pay you long term, and we're still trying to work that out. So it's kind of one of those deals.
Oh, cool.
However, man, the Josh Norman situation, the Panthers hit him with the franchise tag, but later rescinded it because a deal could not be worked out. So
Why?
They couldn't come to terms, on the agent side and on Josh Norman's side, they couldn't come to terms with the franchise. And so they decided to rescind it, which we are still scratching our heads about because he's a great player. He's probably one of the top 5 at his position in the NFL. He had a great year. Those guys went to the Super Bowl. But he did get signed because it was...
How much was he signed for?
That's what we're getting to.
Jesus well. Jesus
Jesus
well.
well.
Jesus, man.
He cried
5
profusely.
years,
5 years,
75
$75
million.
Oh, is he single?
Yeah. Yes, he is.
Am I too old?
He's single. He's single. But he just signed with the Washington Redskins, who have been known to splurge on players.
Yeah.
They have been known to
I
splurge on
just
players
bought
over the
a
years.
Redskin shirt yesterday for $5 from Mr. Allen.
There you
I
go.
feel supportive.
There
I feel
you go.
supportive.
And they're going to be much better. It's a weak division, but the Redskins won the division last year. And so by them adding that piece, they're going to be much better, especially on defense.
I necessarily beg to differ on that just because of the fact of this screams Albert Haynesworth 2.0 all over again. Given the fact, and
Now, explain who Albert Haynesworth is.
Albert Haynesworth was a defensive tackle.
Wait, you're so politically correct. I beg to differ. What he's really trying to say, he thinks Jason is wrong.
He think I'm out of my mind. So
Okay,
we call
then
Sports
Jason, you
Nuts.
wrong.
Hey, there we go.
Sports Nuts, give it to us.
I just say that because of it screams Albert Haynesworth 2.0. The fact of the matter is, you overpaying for a person who hasn't shown you any type of longevity. Yes, he's done this for this past season, and he's done this for the half of 2014.
Right.
However, there's been instances in this past season where we've seen Norman go against the likes of Odell Beckham Jr., where I think Odell had nearly 200 yards receiving and 2 to 3 touchdowns in that game. It was one of the most high prolific games going on at that point because both players should have been ejected with
Absolutely.
their
They were
play.
fighting on the field.
Exactly.
And they kept them in the game, but it made for a lot of entertainment. Oh, and by the way, the Redskins and Giants are in the same division
So they're playing twice
a
a year.
year.
Oh,
So,
wait.
hey, there you go.
Let's open
NFL
the
drama.
lines. 313-209-9000.
NFL
Who
drama.
do you agree with? Do you agree with Jason or do you agree with Davari? Give us a call, 313-209-9000. Wait a minute, what's going on with Johnny Manziel?
Oh, boy.
Johnny.
I'll let you do that, Davari.
Uh,
That's your boy.
Yeah, that's
So
my guy. That's
I'll
my
let you.
guy, man. He showed a lot of promise coming out of Texas A&M. High-profile player, talented is all heck. But I think the issue is that he doesn't need the NFL. He more so looks at it like the NFL needs him. You're talking about $1 million silver spoon rich kid coming out.
Exactly.
He doesn't need the NFL contract. He probably makes more money in his sleep than what he would make playing for the Cleveland Browns with his father owning all these oil refineries. So he's a party goer. He's a party kid. So, he likes to party, and he feels that the NFL shouldn't tell him how he should spend his time away from the franchise, away from the facility.
That's a good point, though. What do you guys feel about that? When I'm off of work, I do not want the judges calling me saying, hey, TataNisha, 1 too many coolers. I don't think that's fair.
See, the problem with Johnny Manziel is he's always on social media, at these parties, at these clubs with his beers and
But is he doing cocaine? Is he doing heroin?
No, he's not. He's
well, we
trying
don't
to
know
build
that.
his brand. That's what Johnny Manziel is trying to do. He's being smart. He's looking at life after football. And the NFL doesn't like any type of self-promotion.
But he just got to the NFL 2 years ago.
Understandable.
And anytime you draft, a quarterback in the first round, they're expecting you to be the guy.
This is
franchise guy.
Cleveland, the mistake by the lake. Okay,
well-
it's not
What
going
does
to
the
be
guy mean?
great.
What does the guy mean?
He needs help. He needs to go to rehab because he's been fired by 2 agents in the past, few months?
Not even a year.
Not even a year. He's been fired by,
Wait.
He's getting fired by an agent.
That's a pretty bold statement. He needs help because he's been fired. I fired people that didn't need help, and I've been fired, and I'm not a drug addict. So can we make that blanket statement? I don't know. I'm kind of agreeing with Davari here.
Well,
I
you
think
really would have to see what he's been doing in order to.
Is his game being affected? That's the
No,
question.
and that's the problem. His game is not
But
being
he hasn't
affected.
shown us anything yet to be partying like that.
the young-
See, if it was Tom Brady, if it was one of those, Cam Newton, if it was one of those guys who showed you something, who got to the playoffs, who won a Super Bowl, or at least competed for a Super Bowl, he was told day one he was going to be a backup. So backup in my mind, okay, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to show these guys everything I have. I'm going to keep my head on straight. I'm not going to party. I'm going to show them that I'm not. You drafted me in the first round for a reason. I'm going to start. I'm going to be the man for Cleveland. I'm not going to be the mistake by the lake. I'm going to be that guy.
But how does partying?
He hasn't showed us that.
How does partying that doesn't affect his game make him a bad person? Now, if he was coming to work drunk,
Not saying
and
he's a bad person. But he needs help. See, everybody looks at help as a bad. It's not a bad
Well,
word.
what does help mean?
Help means that you.
Does it need inpatient?
Go ahead,
Outpatient?
I'll
Go
let
ahead.
you.
What does help mean?
What they're trying to do is they're trying to say that his drinking off the field is causing a lot of social problems.
He
off
has had
the field.
DUIs.
Again, off the field. Okay, last I checked, most of these guys, especially Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, before the Peyton Mannings and everything like that, Tom Brady's a rock star. He's praised for what he do off the field.
Right.
He has the Giselle Bunch and the beautiful wife and everything like that. No one gets on him about partying.
But he keeps his nose clean though. He doesn't get DUIs. Now he may drink. They may go out and enjoy some of Giselle's success.
So what are the last words, Jason, you'd like to leave the viewers and the listeners with as a sportsman?
Follow me on Instagram at JRutMusic, JRUTMUSIC, as well as JRutMusic on Twitter. I'm on there. I'd love to tweet with you guys if you guys want to talk about the Pistons or the playoffs.
And the last words in terms of sports.
I'm looking forward to the NFL draft.
And Davari, what are your last words?
Last words, looking forward to the NFL draft and possibly if Steph Curry can come back and what the Golden State Warriors are going to do in this epic run to another NBA championship.
And guess what?
Glad to
We'll
be
be
here.
back next week.
Oh, yeah.
Legal Kaleidoscope featuring the Sportsnet segment. I thank my viewers. I thank my listeners.
Thanks, guys.
910 AM Superstation. And if you need a good divorce attorney or you need a will, feel free to call my office, 248-2288-377. In your time of need, call attorney